In February 2026, Frito-Lay did something it had not done in a generation. It cut the price of Doritos. Not a coupon, not a weekend promotion, a permanent reduction of up to 15%, rushed onto shelves days before the Super Bowl. Because somewhere along the way, a bag of chips had crossed $7 and America had quietly stopped reaching for it. The loudest brand in the snack aisle was, for the first time in its life, asking politely. This isn't really a story about the price of corn. It's about what happens when a company mistakes loyalty for permission. Walmart, its largest retail partner, had been telling PepsiCo for more than a year that the chips cost too much. Executives inside the building knew it too. Frito-Lay missed its own internal revenue targets 2 years running, each time by more than $1 billion. By late 2025, PepsiCo's market value had fallen more than $50 billion from its 2023 peak, and the snack division sat squarely at the center of it. So here's the question worth 11 minutes of your life. How does the most recognizable snack in the United States, a chip so famous it has its own Super Bowl tradition, price itself out of the aisle it built? And why, when the price finally came back down, did nobody come back with it? To understand the fall, you have to start in a bin behind a restaurant at Disneyland. In the early 1960s, a delivery salesman from a company called Alex Foods noticed that Casa de Fritos was throwing out surplus tortillas at the end of every day. He suggested the cook stop wasting them, cut them into triangles, fry them, season them, sell them. Guests loved them. The restaurant added them to the menu without telling head office. Then a Frito-Lay marketing executive named Arch West wandered in on a family trip and tasted one. He took the idea back to his own boardroom, and his own colleagues told him to drop it. The company already made a corn chip. So West quietly funneled discretionary funds to an off-site facility, developed the product anyway, and pitched again with samples in his hand. The chip got its name from Doradito, little golden thing. It reached Southern California in 1964 and went national in 1966. The first tortilla chip ever sold coast to coast in America. Taco flavor arrived in 1967, nacho cheese in 1972. A garbage can became an empire. For 60 years, that empire ran on a simple bargain. The chips were loud, cheap, and everywhere. And you never once thought about what they cost. And Frito-Lay made sure of the everywhere. Its own trucks, its own drivers, its own people stocking the racks in your local store, a distribution machine no rival could copy, feeding a brand with a quarter century of Super Bowl appearances behind it. Control the aisle, control the appetite. Then the bargain broke, and it broke from the inside. Look at what was actually driving growth. By 2022, Frito-Lay's unit sales were roughly flat, which means every point of that year's revenue growth came from raising prices, not selling more chips. And when raising the number on the shelf got uncomfortable, the company shrank what was inside it instead. A standard bag went from 9 3/4 ounces to 9 1/4, about 5 fewer chips. Nobody announced it. They just hoped you wouldn't count. You counted. In September 2020, a 16-ounce bag of potato chips averaged $5.02. By September 2024, it was $6.46. Over 4 years, the median bag of Doritos at Walmart climbed from around $3.98 to $5.94, a rise of nearly 50%. Somebody filmed themselves opening a snack-sized bag and finding 5 chips inside, held up 5 fingers, and the internet did the rest. That is the moment a household name becomes a punchline. Retailers noticed before head office admitted it. Walmart reportedly began handing shelf space to cheaper store brands and to rivals like Takis, and in the snack business, shelf space is oxygen. PepsiCo noticed eventually. It reversed the shrinking, adding 20% more chips to bonus bags. It ran promotions, it tested lower prices in select cities. None of it worked, because by then, the damage wasn't arithmetic, it was emotional. In September 2025, the activist fund Elliott disclosed a stake worth $4 billion and pushed for something blunter. Cut 20% of the American product range, drop prices on the core brands, stop pretending. By February, the cuts were real. And still, people didn't come back. Because while Frito-Lay was arguing with itself about pricing, 2 things were happening to the American appetite that no discount could touch. The first is chemical. Roughly 18% of American adults now use a weight loss medication of the GLP-1 class, up from about 14% a year earlier. These are not casual users at the margins. 56% of them report buying fewer salty snacks. Their grocery baskets restructure around protein and fresh produce, and the chip aisle is the first casualty. One analysis puts roughly $95 billion of American packaged food spending at risk by 2030. For a brand whose entire business model assumes you cannot stop at one, a drug that makes stopping effortless is not a headwind. It's a solvent. The second is political. Federal health officials asked the food industry to strip synthetic petroleum-based colors from the American food supply by the end of 2026. Doritos, a product whose orange is arguably more famous than its flavor, suddenly had to answer for its own pigment. In December, Frito-Lay put a colorless version on shelves, reformulated, the company said, in 8 weeks. Same crunch, same flavor, no dye. It also announced a protein version for 2026. Watch what that admits. When the loudest snack in America starts apologizing for being loud, the confidence is already gone. But here's the part that should genuinely worry anyone in Plano, Texas. Americans have not stopped buying chips. In the 52 weeks ending in May 2026, tortilla and tostada chip sales at American retail rose slightly to more than $2.5 billion. Frito-Lay led the category with nearly $5.9 billion in sales and fell 0.2%. Barcel, the company behind Takis, rose 4.2%. Siete Foods rose 21.7%. In potato chips, the story repeated. Frito-Lay down 1.3%, while smaller players posted double-digit gains. The aisle is not dying. The incumbent is losing it, one facing at a time, to brands that were rounding errors a decade ago. Shoppers didn't abandon the ritual, they just walked 4 feet down the shelf and picked up something cheaper, spicier, or simpler, and discovered they didn't miss the triangle at all. Which brings us to July 2026 and the verdict. In the spring, the chief executive had promised investors double-digit shelf space growth for Frito-Lay in March and April. More shelf, lower prices, relaunched brands, every lever the company had pulled at once. 3 months after slashing prices by as much as 15%, Frito-Lay North America reported volume that was completely flat. Revenue and pricing both slipped around 2%. The company charged less and sold exactly the same amount. Its chief executive told analysts the consumer was worse than anticipated, blaming petrol prices. The stock drifted toward a 52-week low, down roughly a fifth from its high, and one of the market's most reliable defensive names became a question mark. The cost of all this isn't measured in share price. It's measured in Orlando, where a Frito-Lay plant and warehouse shed 454 jobs, and a support warehouse closed in May, taking 46 more. In Rancho Cucamonga, California, the site that gave the world Flamin' Hot Cheetos, where 248 people were let go. In Liberty, New York, where 287 went. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, where 184 warehouse workers lost their jobs this July, while the production lines beside them kept running. Those are the people who paid for a pricing strategy decided in a boardroom. It's worth being fair about the other side of this. Analysts still forecast the American salty snack market growing around 2.8% this year, to more than $31 billion. Snacking itself is not in retreat. One respected analyst argued the February cuts were probably enough to bring shoppers back, before war in Iran sent oil prices climbing and made every assumption about the household budget obsolete. There is a version of this where the discounts work slowly, the reformulations land, and the giant simply gets smaller and healthier. But there's a harder reading, and the numbers lean toward it. For 4 years, Doritos tested how much affection a brand can convert into cash, and it found the ceiling. What it discovered on the other side wasn't a customer waiting to be won back with $1 off. It was a customer who had learned something during the years of shrinking bags and rising prices, that the chip was never actually irreplaceable, that the aisle was full of alternatives, that the ritual could survive the loss of the logo. Doritos began as something somebody threw away, rescued by a man who believed people would want it if he could only get it in front of them. 60 years later, it's back in the bin, and this time, it's America doing the throwing. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to the channel and like the video. There's a lot more coming.